Some people would rather crash than slow down.
The Bikeriders might be my new go-to answer for what a 3-star movie looks like. It has all the right pieces, a loaded cast, a director with some solid work to his name, an interesting premise, and some genuinely excellent scenes. But it keeps falling short in its execution. For context, back in 1968, journalist Danny Lyon released the book The Bikeriders, a collection of photos and interviews from his time spent with the Outlaws Motorcycle Club. If you've heard of the Outlaws, it's probably because of their decades-long feud with the Hells Angels, but they're still one of the biggest MCs in the world. The movie is partially an adaptation of both the book and the interview recordings Lyon handed over to director Jeff Nichols, though the names are changed and a few narrative flourishes have been added in. The film sees Lyon, played by Mike Feist, chronicling the lives of the people in and around the Vandals, a motorcycle club based in the Chicago suburbs. Most of the story is told through interviews with Jodie Comer's Kathy, a woman who fell in love with a Vandals member and witnessed firsthand the rise and decline of the MC throughout the 1960s. And to get the motorcycle metaphors out of the way, when it's cruising along as a fun little hangout movie, effortlessly blending in the members' lust for freedom with the 60s backdrop, it's a good time. Then it shifts into second gear following a time skip and sees the club become a clash of generations, growing too big too fast and swapping out wife guys, mechanics, and street racers with impoverished youth desperate for a community, criminals, and Vietnam War vets trying to nurse their PTSD and drug addictions. Unfortunately, it's here where the movie's engine stalls. At times, it's as aimless as Austin Butler's wide-eyed, chain-smoking Benny, who's simultaneously the biggest believer in what the club stands for, yet is more than ready to abandon it when offered the role of club president. It feels like Nichols couldn't quite pin down how he wanted the story to be framed. Sometimes it's centered around Danny's interviews with Kathy, sometimes it's about Danny hanging out with the gang and talking to each member, and then the movie randomly shifts to a third-person perspective without the need for Danny or Kathy, leaving the audience to ask,
how did you know about the parts you weren't there for?
It's one of those films where you can see a better version hiding underneath. Tom Hardy plays Johnny, the Vandals' founding member, who was bored of his life as a family man and was inspired by Marlon Brando in The Wild One to start up a writing club. He's the film's version of Outlaws MC founder John Davis, and watching him gradually get in way over his head as the club grows makes for some of the best scenes. But it's never allowed to just be Hardy's movie. If anything, it's Comer's movie, since Hardy is often kept at arm's length from the audience, and Butler's direction seems to have been say little and look pretty. But she's less of an active player in the story and more of a bystander, an eventual victim caught up in the club's orbit. And the decision to have both her and Hardy trudge their way through their interpretations of Chicago accents is a choice. And yet I can't say I dislike the movie. I've been a fan of Nichols since his Matthew McConaughey project Mud over a decade ago, and he shows how he's still able to make every setting and character feel as down-to-earth as possible. And when it comes to action scenes and sudden bursts of violence, of which the Bikeriders has plenty, he's able to layer in levels of visceral reality. You feel the pain of every punch and slice of a switchblade. Every time an improvised weapon is brought in, it feels like a bomb just went off. And when a gun is finally utilized in the film's climax, it's a shocking point of no return. It'd be easy to lump this in as the latest staple of dad films offered in weekend cable lineups, but its violent aspirations are much higher than that. The Bikeriders isn't Easy Rider. It's not Sons of Anarchy, and it's definitely not Goodfellas on Harley-Davidsons. It's often messy, unfocused, and seemingly weighed down by the duties of being an adaptation. But there's definitely a vibe to latch onto, and every actor tries their best to make the most out of what screen time they're offered. It's good, just not great. A 3 out of 5 if I've ever seen one. Thanks for watching.